Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, and we are now at part 4. We are at the last one of my 4-part series. We're going to be talking about my master's today, and yeah, this is it. This is the last one, unless I decide to do a PhD in the future. Then there might be a part 5. I don't know, but that will be maybe for a while. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next year if I decide to reapply for a PhD or not. But yeah, we are at the last one. Obviously, videos are not going to end here. I'm going to be making more content. But you probably noticed as you clicked my video, there's something missing in my room. And my bookshelf is gone, and so is my other little dresser. It's gone. That's now at my parents' house. And yeah, because I'm in the process of moving, you can't see anything here, but there's a bunch of stuff on this side, and it's already 6:30. I decided to film a little bit late because there were people at the pool at my apartment complex, and it's typically children, and they're really, really loud. And they're still there right now, and they're really, really loud. So I'm probably going to have to talk loud so you guys don't hear them screaming. So that's the whole issue with me filming later in the day. I typically like to film in the morning early, but I was extremely exhausted this morning from moving things yesterday from the 3rd floor to my dad's van. And then I went to Disney, and then when I woke up this morning, my arms were actually really, really sore. And my arms haven't been that sore since I used to go to the gym. And I haven't been to a gym in over a year because of COVID. That's another story in itself. But yeah, now we're here at this video, and I have my laptop open with my transcripts, and I'm ready to talk about my master's. And I'm so excited to talk about my master's. There was a lot going on within the 2 years, and the 2 years just flew by like that. So I can't wait to get started. And remember to like my video, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, let's get going with this video. Okay, so I think I need to talk a little bit about why I decided to go to Usf Tampa, and I didn't talk about this in part 3 when I was applying to graduate school. So I applied to 2 programs. I applied to the University of South Florida in Tampa. I was already at USF, but in Sarasota, but I'm applying to Tampa and a different program, a master's. And I was also applying to the University of Central Florida, UCF, in Orlando. And that was when I was an undergrad. So I had those 2 options, and both accepted me, and both gave me the teaching assistantships. And I had to determine which one I wanted to go to. And I picked USF, and I can probably film a separate video of why I picked USF. There was actually a ton of reasons why I picked USF, and I did have UCF in mind, and I thought about going, but a couple things happened with UCF that I thought that this, that was not the school for me. So yeah, I picked USF. I got the graduate teaching assistantship, and I started my master's in the fall of 2019. And a master's is a little bit different than a bachelor's, considering like class time. So like a master's, you're considered a full-time student taking 3 courses, where like a bachelor's, you're considered a full-time student if you're taking 4 courses. So I had to take 3 courses in order to keep my teaching assistantship. So my first semester in fall 2019, I was taking analysis of history or analysis of historical knowledge. Sorry, there's like, it doesn't show the full name of the class. It's like an acronym. So analysis of historical knowledge, that was one class. The other one was the US, the global Cold War, and then 19th century United States. And I was also a teaching assistant. For those of you who don't know, I had decided to still live in Sarasota. And Sarasota is about an hour from Tampa. So I was driving back and forth in order to take my classes, because my classes had to be in person. When doing a master's in history, you have to have a lot of class discussion. There's no lectures given out. So I had to be in class in person. So yeah, I was driving an hour back and forth, and I was doing that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, because if I remember correctly, I think Mondays I didn't have class, but Mondays I didn't have class, but I was the teaching assistant for the Age of Alexander the Great. So I had to be in that class in person. The professor was Dr. Murray, and Dr. Murray wanted me to be there in person for the students and have office hours. So I did have my own office, as you probably saw in one of my videos when I was cleaning out my office. So yeah, I had to be there in person. So I was there Mondays. So then I would drive back Monday night, and then come back Tuesday morning. And Tuesday, I had the US and the Global Cold War class at night with Dr. Irwin, and then drive back. And then Wednesday was like my full load day. And by Wednesday, I was so tired. Wednesday, I had in the morning the 19th century United States class with Dr. Connolly, and towards the end of that class, it would kind of overlap with the Age of Alexander the Great course. So I would walk into my teaching assistantship class a little late because I was in my 19th century class. But it's the way that they had assigned me with my teaching assistantship. They just made it that way. So they kind of had to deal with me walking into that class late. So, and then after that, I probably had like lunch, do some homework, or have some office hours. And then I remember going to get Starbucks at the USF library with my friends. And then I would have my analysis class at night, and I was just exhausted by that time at night. Yeah, it was Wednesday night, and I was always out of it in that class. Like, I wish I would have like been able to discuss a little bit more, but I was just so mentally and physically tired. Think about it. I'm driving back and forth Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I was honestly getting like 5 hours of sleep. I was just really tired. So it was hard. My first semester was really hard. I can tell you the grades that I got. I don't care. It is what it is. Analysis, I got an A-. US and Global Cold War, I got a B+. And 19th century, I got a B+. And I know in one video I had said that B's should be celebrated, and absolutely they should. But in graduate school, a B is like not really good. And a C in graduate school is considered failing. That's when they will actually bring you in their office and say, okay, what's going on? Like, you have a C, this is not okay. So nobody brought me in their office and asked me like what was going on. It was a B+. It was my first semester. It was a lot to handle, a lot of workload. As a history major, I'm reading about 3 books a week, you know, plus doing the assignments, plus writing final papers, plus, you know, balancing a teaching assistantship, plus driving back and forth. I had a lot going on. And I remember my first semester, I wasn't happy doing my master's at all. I remember the first week classes started, and I was thinking about dropping out, to be honest. I just wasn't happy. I was really overwhelmed. And I had to come to a point where I had to ask myself, when was I happy? Like, when was I happy in school? Like, what was it about my bachelor's that made me happy to be in school? And that's a reflection I had to ask, you know, and have within myself and ask. And And I remember I said it was when I was doing my undergrad thesis. That was when I was having the most fun in school, working on my own research and talking about an important topic. And I was like, why don't I write a master thesis? And I had walked into the program thinking that I was going to do a thesis. And I wanted to do a thesis on immigration history, but I wasn't sure what time period. I wasn't sure what group of immigrants I wanted to focus on. I just knew I wanted to write a thesis on immigration history. So I remember I went to my professor for analysis, Dr. Prince. At the time, I didn't have an advisor yet. So I went to Dr. Prince and I told him, I was like, hey, I have an idea for a thesis. And I kind of told him a little bit about the idea, and he thought it was a good idea. Then I went to another professor. I went to Dr. Irwin. Dr. Irwin thought it was a really good idea, and that she said that she would be on board to be on my committee. So I was like, great. I remember I went to Dr. Perry, and I told Dr. Perry, I was like, what if I write my thesis on the history of the DREAM Act and DACA? And Dr. Perry was like, that's an excellent idea. He was all for it. Dr. Perry doesn't teach immigration history. He does ancient history. But Dr. Perry was like such, and is still such a huge supporter of mine. So he was really pushing for me to write a thesis. He was like, I think that you need to write a thesis. You wrote an undergrad thesis. You did an amazing job with that thesis. You are capable of writing a master thesis. So he was such a big supporter of mine on that. And so entering spring of 2020, having a thesis in mind and thinking that I'm going to write one, I spoke with Dr. Prince, and I said, like, this is my idea for a thesis. And he was like, do you have an advisor? And I was like, no, I was hoping you would be my advisor. And he was like, absolutely, sure, I'll be your advisor. So Dr. Prince was now my advisor, and he and I were talking about classes that were going to be offered in spring of 2020. And unfortunately, not that many classes were being offered for graduate students in the history department for spring 2020. I remember a lot of us were struggling to get classes that would fit for our field. So Dr. Prince and I kind of like had a game plan. I did an independent study with him, and we basically, I think we got like 12 books about like immigration history, and they were like of different time periods of different groups of immigrants. Like we did a bunch of different books. Then I did public history with Dr. Levy, which I completely loved that class. And then spring of 2020, I also did the Irish in America. Now that class was a class for undergrad students, but because they weren't offering so many graduate courses for history majors, they were willing to make the exception and have me take that class with undergrads. I still had to go to class, listen to the lectures, but I had to do a little bit more extra work than the undergrads, and I was fine with it. Okay, so that semester, things were actually going well, picking up. I remember I was asked by Dr. McBride, if you don't remember her from my last video, she was my advisor for my undergrad thesis, and she asked me if I would be on a panel for international students for the Tampa campus, and I agreed to do it. It was like a panel of 7. I have a video of that. I can actually post that later, where I got to share a little bit about my experience as a DACA recipient. That was like in February of 2020, and everything was going well. And then beginning of March happens, and the pandemic happened, and shit, we were all told you need to stay home and do classes at home and online, and do research at home and online. And it was, some of it was a disaster. I remember I was sleeping nonstop. My body must have been in some type of shock from just being at home all the time. Like we couldn't go anywhere. We were told to stay home. It was a lockdown. Yeah, and I remember for public history, Dr. Levy didn't make us read, I think 2 books towards the end. We read some articles, did some class discussions, worked on our final papers. And then for the Irish in America, you know, I didn't go to class lecture, but I was trying to finish a final paper, and unfortunately, because of the pandemic, they weren't doing interlibrary loans. So I couldn't request books from the library. And as a history major, you need books to do your research. So how am I going to write my final papers if I don't have these books? But a lot of the professors were really lenient on that. I think I also thought ahead, and I had heard from somebody from Usf Sarasota who worked with the interlibrary loans over there, and she told me, she was like, if I were you, I would start requesting books now. So I had books requested, but obviously when you get a certain amount of books, there's still books that you still need in order to write a paper. So I had to make do with what I had. And then some professors were like, okay, just go online and research some articles, because you're gonna have to use articles to write a historiography paper. Unfortunately, you need books, but you know, what can we do? So all those 3 classes, independent study, Irish in America, and public history, I got all A's. So I felt a lot better, considering my first semester, my grades were not that high. Second semester, I was able to pull through, even though this pandemic hit and it was a little bit crazy to do that semester, but everything went fine. And then summer 2020 happens, and you know, I am considering moving out of my parents' house. I was looking for a place to live because I was starting to realize, being home, it's kind of hard for me to do homework and read, and I'm hearing that we're not going to go back to school physically in person and do these classes in person. So how can I do like homework and class at home if my family's being really loud? And I'm telling them, you need to go to your room and like stop being loud. I'm in class. Like, I need peace and quiet. So I was considering moving out, and I think I was considering moving out since February, but this time I was like, no, I have to move out. I'm sorry. I need the peace and quiet to do homework, to do research, to be in class. I gotta go. Okay. And it was also during this time that my advisor had actually sent me an email. He admitted to this during my defense, so I think I can talk about this. He pretty much backed out of wanting to do this thesis. This thesis that I had talked about, he was like, I think this is a really bad idea. This is going to be really hard and a lot of work. And I think that you need to drop the thesis hours that you signed up for fall 2020 and pick up class hours and you know, just do regular courses. And I was freaking out because I couldn't believe he sent me this email. I was like, why is he panicking? Why is he backing out? I know what I need to research. I don't need books. I need to just go online, go on the congressional records, do this type of research. So I remember I sent him an email back and I said, look, I really respect your decision to back out. And I know that, you know, you don't want to be my advisor for this project anymore. For fall semester, I was supposed to audit his course. And I said, I hope you will still let me, you know, audit your course, but I'm not dropping my thesis hours. I'm going to write this thesis. And if you don't want to be a part of this project, you know, I respect that, but I'm going to find a new advisor this week. And I sent him that email. And I tried to be like the most respectful that I could towards him, because I have I respect this man so much. He really pushed me during my master's. I remember being really quiet, not wanting to talk in class, not wanting to share my thoughts. The books that I was reading, he really pushed me, you know, in a lot of ways. So I was trying to be very respectful in that email to him and understanding his side of it, like why I shouldn't proceed with this thesis. But I said, I'm going to do it. I want to do this research. I know how I need to go by it. I'm gonna do it with or without you. Literally an hour later, he sends me an email back and he's like, I take back pretty much everything that I said. I am on board. I will be your advisor. Let's do this thesis. There was more to the email. This is like thinking off the top of my head, okay? But he wanted like a game plan, like dates of when I would get things done and research done and writing done and all of that. I said, fine, okay. So during the summer of 2020, my brother actually got a job to go to North Carolina and do some work up there. So his apartment was actually vacant for 2 months. He was still paying rent, but what I would do was, I knew my parents were home, they weren't working because of the pandemic. I would grab the keys to his apartment, go to his apartment, and actually do my research at his apartment. And I would go to his dining table and really just sit there, open my laptop, start going through the congressional records of the year 2000 to 2010, I think, is what I started doing, and reading those congressional records on the DREAM Act and taking notes. It's not just reading, but taking notes and trying to understand what was going on at the time, and senator speeches and newspaper articles, and gathering all that data and basically saving all of that on my flash drive and typing all my notes and color coding things. So I was doing that over the summer and updating my professor on all my research, okay? So fall of 2020 comes, and I'm basically doing an independent study again, but this is for my thesis. So it's called an independent study, but it's basically thesis hours, okay? I'm also doing immigration and ethnicity, which is not part of my research, it's a class. And that was taught by Dr. Audanelli. And then I'm also doing thesis hours. So not just an independent study, it's independent study, thesis hours, immigration and ethnicity, and I'm also auditing my advisor's class on race and ethnicity. I can't remember the name of his class, but it dealt with like race and violence. And yes, I'm auditing his class, and I don't have to attend every class lecture and read all the books and be in class discussion, but that's what I did. So for my advisor's class, I basically would read the books. Even though I'm just auditing, I was reading the books and participating in class discussions, because we thought that I was going to, the word just left my mind. We thought I was going to do comprehensive exams. It's these huge exams that, history majors have to do. But by the end of fall semester, we found out that I had the option of whether to do comprehensive exams or to do a portfolio. And the portfolio option was much easier for me because I was writing the thesis. So I ended up not doing comprehensive exams. But starting of fall of 2020, I went in with the mentality of thinking I was going to do comprehensive exams. And that's why I was auditing his class, but it actually didn't work out that way, and that's okay. I feel like I've learned so much. I learned so much in his class. I need a sip of, I don't have water, I have Pepsi. I almost said Coke. Can you guess from where? Oh, this is the name, never mind. Okay, so those are the credits that I'm taking. I'm really focusing on, my classes. I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, spring of 2020, the class that I was TAing for was called Gender and Sexuality in the US, and it was taught by Dr. Johnson. And that was a great course that I was also able to TA. But that course, I didn't give a lecture. I almost gave a class lecture, and then the pandemic happened. So I was so disappointed I didn't get to give a class lecture. But for the Age of Alexander the Great, I gave a class lecture on Alexander the Great crossing the Gedrosian Desert, and I really enjoyed it, and even Dr. Murray thought I did a great job with that. But for fall 2020, I was I was the TA for immigration history, and Dr. Ottonelli was the professor for that course, and he was also, that's for undergrads, but he was also the professor for immigration and ethnicity. So it was great to have him as my professor, but it was also great to have him also as like, I guess like you would say my boss, the person that I would report to as a TA. So I really enjoyed being the TA for that class, because I already had so much knowledge underneath my belt from everything that I was reading about immigration history. So yeah, and that semester I was doing really well. Unfortunately, for an independent study and thesis hours, there's no like ABC grade. Immigration and ethnicity, I got an A. You get like an S grade, satisfactory, I guess, maybe. But yeah, they were going well. I was doing well with my thesis. I want to say, I remember in October, I was 25 pages in already, like 25 pages in, I'm trying to think, in chapter 2. It's really weird how it just makes sense the way I wrote my thesis. Starting off with chapter 2 first. So by October, I already had 25 pages written, and by beginning of December, I had about 50 pages written for chapter 2. And chapter 1, I already had about, I want to say 18 pages written, because part of chapter 1 was my final paper for immigration and ethnicity. So because Dr. Ottonelli, I remember he let me actually write chapter 1 as like my final paper for his class. So thank you to Ottonelli, really, because if I had written a final paper plus writing chapter 1 and writing chapter 2, I would have been screwed. It would have been a lot of work for me. And I was also at the time the vice president for the history department graduate student organization. So we were doing like a works in progress workshop, and we needed somebody to showcase something of their work, some chapter, some article, something. And no graduate student was like raising their hand. Nobody had anything ready to showcase, and it had to be pretty much me to showcase chapter 2, which was fine. I don't care. Like, more like it helped me in the sense of having everybody read my chapter 2 and tell me, hey, you should add this, you should think about this, you should fix this, and blah, blah, blah. I was fine with it. Okay, spring of 2021, and this is actually my last semester. It's like 2 years flew by like that. It's crazy to me, okay? Okay, spring of 2021, okay? The classes that I took were the US and the World with Dr. Irwin, MA Capstone, which is a class that is required by, you know, like a master's program. I think it's also required, not MA Capstone, but PhD Capstone is required for PhD majors, obviously, but MA Capstone was required, taught by Dr. Benedusi. And then I was also doing thesis hours. So the US and the World, I remember I was taking Dr. Irwin my first semester, and to have her again for my last semester was absolutely great. Dr. Irwin was also on my committee for my thesis, and she wrote some like an amazing email and amazing comments on my papers and assignments of like seeing my progress and my growth as a student. So I learned so much from Dr. Irwin. Dr. Benedusi as well. I was able to learn a few things in her class that I was actually able to incorporate into my thesis. A lot of it I was able to incorporate to my overall chapter of my thesis, and even chapter 3. So I remember I had to have not one but several meetings with Dr. Benedusi because I was freaking out. So by spring of 2021, if you think about it, fall 2020, chapter 1 and 2 of my thesis were being basically written and almost done. In spring of 2021, I'm doing chapter 3. And chapter 3 is an oral history. So I had to interview the same people that I interviewed for my undergrad thesis for my master thesis for a completely different project. And I had to transcribe, and transcribing takes forever, especially if you want to get everything word per word of what they're saying, which is what I need to do. It takes forever. So I remember having a meeting with Dr. Benedusi and her saying, okay, well, what do you need? What do you need to do? What do you need from me? What can I do to help you out in this class? And I said, I need to finish chapter 3, Dr. Benedusi. Like, chapter 3 is a priority. And Dr. Benedusi was like, finish chapter 3. Just whatever, like, your final project is just you giving me chapter 3. And I was like, thank you. Yeah, because think about it. I am finishing the 3rd chapter of my thesis. My defense is coming up in March. Okay. I'm also doing portfolio. The date was set super early, I think early in March, around the same time of my defense for my thesis. So for portfolios, I had to turn in, that can be like a separate video of like history majors and MA program and all of that. But a portfolio, I had to do like a personal statement or a syllabus, a historiography paper of 6,000 words, or like a research paper, which was my thesis. So that counted. But that's a portfolio. So I had to do that on top of everything else. And I remember in February, I think because I just really started to feel the pressure, I ended up getting a migraine. And I think I had experienced a migraine once in my life. And this was a really bad migraine. I had to get my roommate to drive me to the emergency room. And they had to give me an IV. Yeah, an IV. And then they prescribed me medication. It was not medication for a migraine. And if you know me from my other video of like how allergic I am to the COVID-19 vaccine, you would think I'm also allergic to medication, which I am. They gave me the wrong medication, and then I went back like 2 days later for them to help that allergic reaction go away on my body. So that was insane. So yeah, because I was so stressed out, I ended up getting a really horrible migraine. But that's what happened. But I was able to pull through. And my defense was probably my favorite part of the whole MA program, was my defense. Yeah, I remember the night before defense, I was freaking out. Yeah, the night before defense, I was actually freaking out. And because for defense, you don't know what they're gonna ask you. You don't know the questions that they're gonna ask. So I started going over my entire thesis. And like I was like, okay, I feel like chapter 3, I know it in the back of my head. I know my participants, I know their stories, I know my own story. Chapter 3 is fine. Chapter 2 is fine as well. I spent months on chapter 2. Chapter 2 is fine. Chapter 1 was a little bit harder for me to remember like the laws, in the 20th century on immigrant children and education and the laws in Florida and all of that. So I kind of spent some time with chapter 1. And yeah, sorry, these kids are so loud. I don't know why they scream like that every Saturday and Sunday, but I won't have to deal with this anymore because I'm moving back to my parents. I'm gonna have to deal with my dad and the TV. So yay. Okay, so then So I was preparing for defense, and it was really late at night. My next door neighbors are Punjabi. I know they're Punjabi because I could hear the music one day in my bathroom. I'm not just calling them Punjabi. I know because I could hear the music. And yeah, they were being so loud. And I'm trying to like study, you know, prepare myself. I don't think I went to bed until 4 in the morning. I think I woke up at 7:30 in the morning. Defense was at 10. And yeah, was it at 10? I think defense was either at 10 or at 11. And yeah, I remember I was still freaking out about it. But I think it hit like an hour before defense. I don't know what happened, but something clicked in me that was like, okay, you've researched this topic for 9 months. You wrote this. You are the expert in this topic. You know what you're talking about. There's not a question out there that either of your professors can throw at you that's going to stomp you. You're the expert in this topic. You can do this. And then all the worry went away. I'm like, why didn't I think of this last night? So literally an hour before defense, I was fine. I was chilled out. And then defense happens. And the beautiful thing about having to defend in my bedroom and everybody being on computer is I'm about to sneeze. I'm fine. Okay. That's my sneeze. Just deal with it. Okay. Everybody's on computer, right? Everybody is, I think over 30 people came to my defense. You know, professors, classmates, former classmates. My family was there. I had a lot of friends there. So over 30 people came to my defense. I heard sometimes for some schools, defense is not open to the public, but for USF, defense is open to the public. So people are allowed to attend. And the beautiful thing about mine is I was actually allowed to record mine. So I might post that later on YouTube if you are interested of watching an MA thesis defense. But I really enjoyed my defense. There was nothing about my defense that I was like, not ready for this. Comparing it to my undergrad thesis, I didn't defend my undergrad thesis, but I did have to present it. And I remember after presenting it, I had like blacked out everything. The presentation, the questions that they asked me, I blacked out because I was that nervous. With my MA thesis, I didn't black out. Like I felt really, really good about it. So yeah, and I passed. The only thing that was more of a pain in the butt for that was USF and their rules of how to, you know, format your MA thesis. That was the biggest pain in the ass at USF. Do you know how many times I had to turn in my thesis and them giving me comments back saying, oh, you didn't do this, oh, you didn't do this. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this the first time? Why are you telling me this 3 tries later? Oh, we're sorry, we missed it. Really? So yeah, and then I graduated with my master's in history. May 7th is when I was awarded my master's. And yeah, here I am. So, wow, that has been the longest educational journey ever. And if I decide to go into a PhD program, it's going to be even longer because a PhD is like 5-6 years. So, you know, I really hope that you enjoyed my educational journey. I can talk more about being a teaching assistantship. Well, it is a teaching assistantship, but I can talk more about that in another video, and you know, the pros and cons of it. And I think that there's more pros than cons to being a teaching assistant, but the perks of it as well. I can talk all about that in a separate video, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. And I think that this will be now my last video in my bedroom, in this bedroom, you know, and then it's off to my parents' house. Yay. Can you tell how excited I am about this? And the kids screaming, oh yeah, I'm so upset to go. All right, well, I actually have to go. I have a couple things that I need to do, one more errand that I need to run, a couple things I want to do here at my place, and yeah, and start getting ready for work tomorrow. Yeah, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video.